Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and it's time to listen to music. Now, what music that is, I do not know, but I'm pretty sure John does because he's the one offering up at the dish today. So, John, what will it be?
Buzzcocks, me duck.
All right.
Um,
It's been a while since I've heard
yeah, I
Buzzcocks.
mistakenly was looking at this thinking that we'd done them on this channel, but we haven't. It was on
Oh,
Into the Music,
yeah.
and it was the Autonomy, which is, for those of you who stuck around long enough in an episode, it's our sort of exit tune music.
Yeah.
So that's three of you. Will come as a surprise to everyone else. So yeah, well, it's
I
about
like how
time.
you said everyone else like the other three.
So yeah, we've done a bit of magazine, and so I thought I'd go back to the other half of that
Yeah.
sort of Buzzcocks power couple, Pete Shelley, and the direction they went in after Spinal Scratch, and you know, so yeah. Anyway, so there's a song called "Moving Away" from the Pulsebeat.
Moving away from the Pulsebeat.
Yes.
Okay, it's an interesting name. Okay, cool. Well, like you said, we put Buzzcocks more on the back burner of late, focus on magazines. So it's going to be nice to kind of flip that around, revisit the Buzzcocks. So yeah, let me go off, do just that, and I will scurry on back and let you know what I made of it. Love these toms.
You said the things you did and then passed were all because you leaned too fast, but now I'm here, you take it slow, you know now I only wanna be with you. You do too, but I'm so happy just to be with you. I need you too,
Oh wow. Oh my gosh, let me catch my breath here. Yeah, that started off with this great tom work. I mean, there's been a few songs that we've done on the channel or in the past, and we talked about these rolling toms and how great they are. Quite infectious. And you get this crunchy, distorted guitar that joins in and adds all this like just more attitude, more rhythm to the song, which is now like fully kind of part of the identity of the song is how rhythmic it is. Then that other guitar comes in and it adds even more like you weren't expecting. And there's just this more friction. Um, so yeah, it's got this attitude and this driving rhythmic force to it, and the bass line starts to evolve a bit as it progresses, as do these sort of melodic factors to some of what the guitar does, the one lead guitar does, as we just heard it all unfold there. Really great stuff. And I didn't catch a goddamn lyric there, but there is this edgy kind of attitude to the vocals as well, which, given how I described the music to this point, clearly pairs perfectly with it. And that's, one more, box checked in this so far highly energetic, kind of raucous vibe we've got going on here. Really enjoying this so far. It's hard not to tap your toes and bob your shoulders to this thing.
You said the time you didn't love me, although we're being the goodies. You seem like world the past to change. But now you know now I only want to find myself some kinds of furniture. This cat had some kinds of patches cat. You didn't know, but I know that. Oh no, no, no.
That bass. Yes. My God, what a ball of energy that song was from start to stop. Um, God, I loved it. It had this like I don't know, a rebellious nature to it. All this attitude and energy. It was raucous and bordering on calamitous. Um, Again, I didn't catch a goddamn lyric in this thing. Moving away from the pulse beat sounds like a really, I don't know, abstract way of saying marching to the beat of your own drum or something like that. And given the amount of attitude and all that stuff that I just went on about, that would make sense. If only I'd caught more of the narrative to kind of connect these dots, and help fortify this assumption that I've made about just the feel of the song coupled with that that name. But yeah, so much energy. Kind of like this idea of like breaking away from herd mentality. I don't know. I don't know. Again, John is going to have to help me understand that. This is only, my first and only listen. But there is tons of like frictious energy to this song. Great guitar stuff going on. Underscoring again how truly important rhythm guitar can be to a song. There were some really cool, interesting lead motifs throughout this track. But for me, the bass, the rhythm guitar, and the drums really carried the day here. Um, and yeah, I would love to have John bring into focus some of these blind spots I had about, the narrative of the lyrics. But I would have to imagine that they match this energy that the song has as a whole. Even the vocal delivery aspect of it was filled with this this kind of rough edge to it. I don't want to call it punk, but you know, punk's cousin or something like that. Yeah, I really, really like this. The Buzzcocks, I've always enjoyed listening to their stuff whenever they've been thrown my way. And this is another shining example of that. It had all the trappings of a really good rock song. Energy, strong rhythms, this injection of like attitude or rebelliousness. Yeah, good shit. Let's learn more by getting back to John.
Cliff Lazarenko, he's back. So you've got to listen to Moving Where from Pulsebeat by Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
What do you make of it all?
So things like kick off with some really terrific tom work. I instantly think of that one of those earliest points in our exchanges online, we're talking about the Burundi drums and tom, and it sort of was adjacent to that a little bit. So that's kind of where I went with it. And that lasts about 15 seconds. Really loved it. And then some nice crunchy guitar joins the mix. Extra crunchy. And I'm not talking original recipe. This is extra crispy. And there is some lyrics that are delivered with a bit of attitude that perfectly matches this choppy nature of the guitars and the drum work. And then there's this other guitar that comes in that's even crunchier. And I think it's in this can it comes in as I'm listening to it. So that's great. I'm like, oh my God, they're really laying it on now. This is double battered. Go ahead.
Just for your info,
Yeah.
the first guitar that you hear, let me get this right, the sort of rhythm, as it were,
Yes,
guitar,
yes.
that's Pete Shelley.
Okay.
So, and then the second one is Steve Diggle doing the other stuff.
Yeah.
Just
and now he does rhythmic stuff as well, but then I assume he's the one that shifts into at times the more lead guitar part that we get. Okay. Yeah. Which I loved as well. All the guitar work in this was really, really good stuff. Wrought with this punk adjacent attitude without being directly in your face punk. So I guess that means post punk. But it's got a lot of attitude to it, more so than even some post-punk. I guess it's still close enough to the punk teat and hasn't quite weeded itself off yet. But yeah, I'm loving that. The only problem with that is I'm not catching a goddamn bit of these lyrics. No, but I'm loving the attitude with which they're being delivered. You know what I mean? Which is enough for me, because I think at some points when you just give up on it, you then at least accept it as this fifth instrument or whatever, you know what I mean? Which is kind of what it was for me.
Sorry to interrupt again, don't normally do this, but I just remember as well that did Greg give you Homo Sapien?
Yes.
On Into the Music? Yes, and you loved that, didn't you?
Yes.
I remember you were really keen on it, and Pete Shelley and the whole thing about him, so yeah.
Yeah, the whole story about that song and how clever he was, like walking around, talking around the issue at hand. Yeah, I loved that. Very clever. So that was sort of like when I fell in love with him and the sound, and then you were like, oh, well, there's this other, and I'm like, holy shit, okay, hold on. So let me get my bearings here, because there's a lot, but it's all good, whether it's his own stuff, Buzzcocks or Magazine, it's all really, really enjoyable. And all sort of one degree of separation. You can understand the linkage, almost like this to punk, to bring it back to the song. But yeah, there's all this friction in the song. And I think that is a large part to do, obviously, with the guitars, but particularly the rhythm section and the rhythm guitar that you mentioned, which you said was Shelley, right? That was on the rhythm.
Yeah, it's normally sorry, I've never spoken so much when you're
It's
reacting to a
okay.
song,
It's
but
okay. You're
um,
buying me some
and no,
time.
but Pete Shelley is normally considered the lead guitarist and Steve Diggle the rhythm. But I've seen the live version of this, and it's definitely the other way around.
Right.
And it was the same on Autonomy as well. It was more Steve Diggle's track, and he did the lead on that. So I guess they're not. It's not like television. They're not that interchangeable, but
Yeah.
they're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good to know. And it is. I have to say, it's good to know because I can attribute credit to Shelley in this regard because it's the scratchy chug
Yeah.
of that rhythm guitar that gives this song, or that really sets the compass for the attitude of this song. And that I really, really loved. By 351, everything cuts out, save for those like tom-driven drums that keeps moving along, all syncopated and tight. Before we get these shots of thick guitar chord strikes punctuating those drum strikes. The guitar's presence swells as we move forward, and we get one final and pronounced strike of a fuzzy guitar chord that resonates and fades out over kind of the end of the track. There's so much like just motion in the song. There wasn't much of a respite anywhere in from the start to the stop, which again gives it this jolt of rebellious nature to it, which I like. You know, it's sort of unrelenting and rebellious in its attitude. And the song has heaps of rhythmic movement that keep the toes tapping and the shoulders bopping, which is another, great part of like what makes rock and roll great. So it had that going for it. Like I said earlier, I wish I caught more of the lyrics to see what kind of message or story was being told over this almost again rebellious kind of sound that they had perfectly created with the music. In fact, even this abstract title that we have, moving away from the pulse beat, um, sort of has this idea or conveys this sort of idea of or hints at this rebellion that I'm talking about. And I'm throwing shit at the wall here, but like it makes me think of it's an interesting way of saying moving to the beat of your own drum or going at your own pace or route. As flowery as it is moving away from the pulse beat when you could just say, going my own way or something like that. But it sort of conveys that kind of sentiment to me, even though I caught none of the lyrics. That's what it sounds like. And given the attitude of the song, if I were to guess, make an educated assumption based on very little, that's where I would end up, I think. So yeah, needless to say, I look forward to you bringing focus to some of these blind spots that I had. But for a first and only listen, I found it to be like uber energetic and attitudinal, wildly rhythmic, which are all, again, cornerstones to so many great rock and roll songs. So how could I not enjoy this on some level? So yeah, this was a fun listen. I'd love to learn a bit more of what it's about if I'm anywhere near being correct. But yeah, super high energy, super like all the friction and the chugging and the tom where all of it was really just really really enjoyable.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. Okay, so I picked this because this is a really good album track that shows a slightly different side to what they're more famous for, Buzzcocks. As we said at the top of this, we have discussed them before on Into Music at length. So I'll drop a link into um, that episode from Into the Music so you can check out more detail about the origins of the band. But just very briefly, from Manchester, they were really, really influential on the burgeoning punk movement in Manchester. They helped organize the first Sex Pistols gig that only 40 people turned up to, of which very famously certain people were there Marky Smith, Barney, and Hooky from Joy Division, etc., etc. They then actually, by that stage, had formed the band, the Buzzcocks, for the second time the Pistols came up, and they played with them, and they were almost like the godfathers of punk in Manchester. And I think I said in a recent episode, but I finished reading Hooky's book about his time in Joy Division, and every other chapter is, I went along, saw Pete Shelley at Buzzcocks for advice about this. It's just like all the time, and all bands were going to them and the same thing. So they really were seen as quite nurturing. And I think, their output and his solo stuff, and Howard Devoto as well, awesome. So yeah, this is the closing track on their debut album, Another Music in a Different Kitchen, released in March 1978. So personnel: Pete Shelley, the wonderful Pete Shelley, much missed, on lead guitar, lead vocals. Steve Diggle, rhythm guitar, backing vocals. Steve Garvey, bass guitar, and John Meyer, drums, percussion. The album's title was inspired by a collage by Linda Sterling. According to Shelley, he says, Howard said, another housewife stews in her own juice in a different kitchen. So we shuffled it around a bit and it came out like that. The album actually reached number 15 in the UK mainstream album charts, which I think, again, is quite something in 1978 for a debut, punk band. Amazing. All Music wrote about this. While the singles showcased one particular side of the band, albums like the group's debut, Another Music, showcased the foursome's other influences, sometimes brilliantly. The big secret is Shelley's worship of krautrock's obsessive focus on repetition and rhythm, which transforms what would be simply basic punk songs into, at times, monstrous epics. The ghost of Can, in particular, hovers on some songs, unsurprisingly, given Shelley's worship of the band's guitarist, Michael Caroli. Moving away from the Pulsebeat is the best instance of this, with rumbling Meyer rhythm supporting some trance-like guitar lines. In a retrospective review for BBC Music, the critic David Quantick named it as his favourite album of all time and wrote, everything about it, from its silver orange lettered sleeve to Martin Rushent's aluminium sheen production, is right. Another Music in a Different Kitchen is also included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, and as luck would have it,
don't tell me you have that.
Specifically, fell off the back of a sleigh on the 24th of December. There's Deborah. So yeah, we have it here, and this is a double page and a half, because there is Buzzcocks, and on the other page, Talking Heads.
Nice.
More songs about buildings and food, which is my favourite Talking Heads album. It's the songs. If we go this way, we have got Funkadelic, but we also have Bruce Springsteen. So, Pill and Magazine. I think we've been here before. We go the other way. It's 1978. We've got Van Halen. The Cars, Devo, Dire Straits, The Saints, Marvin Gaye, X-Ray Specs, and Eno, ambient music for airports, and Susie and the Banshees to Scream. What a year to be alive. And I was 8. Lyrics that you so wanted here. So yeah, before getting to lyrics, so there are two, I see it as two huge influences on this song. The first one being named in that review is Can, or Krautrock.
In general,
the second, I have to say, is Bo Diddley. I mean, the guitars, particularly the solos. I almost expected him to break into Who Do You Love, and even the Doors version is just really awesome as well. Yeah. But anyway, so Pete Shelley's lyrics. You say the things you did in the past were all because you're living too fast, but now I'm here, you're taking it slow. You know what you know you don't know. I only want to be with you. You do, you do, you do, you do, you do too. You do, you do, you do, you do too. But I'm so happy just to be with you. I knew what you knew, what you knew too. Ah. Instrumental break and guitar solo for the first time. And you're right, there's sort of that scratchy sort of, undercurrent, and then Diggle over the top with some great stuff. Back into the lyrics. You said that time you didn't love me, although I've been the cutest you'd seen. But would the past have changed even though you know what you know now? I only want you by my side. Some kinds of pride I just can't hide. Some kinds of pride just can't be denied. But I know that, oh no, no, no. Instrumental break number 2, guitar solo, Bo Diddley, Who Do You Love? Ding, 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 ding. And then the drums. In the live version, I was really tempted to give you a live version of it. It's them a bit later in their career, sort of after they've reformed, doing it. It's good. The drums are just amazing because you just see him doing all
Yeah,
this
all over the
syncopated,
place.
just like a fucking machine all the way through. Unbelievable. But I thought the studio was just a bit clearer, and just you get everything.
Yeah.
He was only 18 when he was doing this drumming. I mean, for fuck's sake, really, really talented. So yeah, and then it sort of comes back in for a bit and finishes. So yeah, I think it's a closer to a sort of debut album. It's got everything you want really from it. I know it's not their best song, but it's just great. There's a great attitude to it. So the band then released their second album in 1978 as well, called
Jesus.
Love Bites. It's not so good. And then their third album, A Different Kind of Tension, in 1979. So 3 albums in 2 years before split, and that's a much better album to be fair. Before splitting in 1980, stroke 81. But it is. There's some great album tracks, but it is a really wonderful collection of singles released over almost 2 short years, which were compiled in Singles Going Steady, which is just the best compilation album you can get. And it really ensured that Buzzcocks' place in music lovers' hearts and the top table of British music, really. And I think what I will do, we had a magazine, don't get me wrong, I love magazine, and it's a different beast. It is another music in a different kitchen, definitely.
Mhm.
But I think this year you're going to get a bit of Buzzcocks, and you'll see
Okay.
the difference. And some of it is just, it's just beautiful, and it's fun as well.
Awesome. I look
So,
forward to it.
yeah, Pete Shelley, obviously, as we know, went on to have a solo career, and after some back catalogues were released in '88, stroke '89, the band got together and started performing again. Um, Both Meyer and Garvey sort of left after about a year of this reformation. But the band continued on. They toured quite a bit. They did Nirvana's last tour in '94, supporting Nirvana. Yeah, that would have been some gig. I saw Nirvana, but at Reading, so I didn't see
Yeah.
them actually on tour. Um, and then they started releasing new material from '93 onwards, and a further 6 albums until Pete Shelley's death in 2018. Um, Steve Diggle, the only original member, continues to fly the Buzzcocks banner with our latest album, Sonics in the Soul, released in 2022. Not heard it. I'm kind of happy with what I've got from them, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah, I can understand how you don't want
I just,
to
I
disrupt.
made the mistake with listening to Pixies' new stuff, and it's like, ugh, I'm not going there. I'm not going there again. So there you go. Bit of Buzzcocks for you.
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
appreciate you sharing it.
I will wrap things up and say thank you for listening, Sandy. Folks out there, tell us what you think. Does it stir the Bo Diddleys in you? Or anybody else you can think of? Please hit the like button if you like this. Drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you, what you think. I have got a couple, because I reckon, even though it's like really, really famous in this country, their sort of big single, Buzzcocks, Andy probably hasn't heard. Um, and there's another one which I first heard on a school bus, and I absolutely adore it. It's probably not everybody's, but the harmonies are just fantastic. I think they got a bit of stick from it. But anyway, I think it's a brilliant song. So there's a couple of real pop sensational punkish songs which are great. But you drop some comments and tell us what you think other Buzzcocks songs we should listen to. Love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And help support this channel onwards and upwards in 2025. We'll get that made into a tattoo. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.